Good morning, everyone. We're so excited that you're here with us this morning for the Secchia Breakfast Series. We have been doing this for over a decade now, and it's exciting to see that it just continues to grow. We've had the opportunity to do this because of the generosity of Peter and Joan Secchia and the family. And so please, a quick round of applause for them. We're very grateful for their support. My name is Jill Dooley. I have the privilege to be the president of the Seidman College of Business Alumni Network Board and leading our alums and staying connected to the university. And we're so excited that, that we have the opportunity to do that. It's important that our alums stay connected to support not just the university, but our students. And with that, I know we have a number of students in the house this morning. If you would please, students, just very quickly stand. We want to acknowledge your presence with us today, too. So please. On your tables, there is a little flyer like this. If you would please take it with you or just read through it. This is, we're asking you to participate in this survey. It is the STEP Project Global Consortium. It is a business survey, and we are very proud to be one of the founding members of the consortium. So it is really important to be able to generate this information. So if you would, either take that with you and find some time to participate. We would certainly appreciate that. I have the honor of inviting our president, President Philly Mantella, to do the intro of our speaker this morning. It's exciting for me to be able to say that she is the first woman president of Grand Valley State University and our fifth president. And we're so privileged to have her leading this organization. So please help me welcome President Mantella.
Milind, I want to just say that every student in here that came after Halloween deserves a job or an internship or whatever they choose. They deserve it. It's on a early morning after Halloween. I have to tell you before I introduce, because I was very excited that this year I got I often get Instagrams and tweets and things, and this year I got 2 that were dressed as me for Halloween. So I've hit a new high as the president of Grand Valley State University. It was quite exciting. Thank you for joining this meeting and this breakfast, and I too want to add my thanks to Joan and Peter Secchia and the Secchia family for all their generosity to Grand Valley State University. The spirit of creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship that is present in each one of these lectures is so important to us to keep a common dialogue going about our future, about leadership, about the opportunities in the region, and nationally and globally is key to who we are. We are honored today to be joined by Amway CEO, Milind Pant. Milind spent over a decade at Yum Foods in the C-suite and was announced as the first CEO of Amway that was a non-family member to run the business in 2019. We joined the West Michigan community together and in fact had some early conversations about the future of Amway, about the needs of the company globally, anchoring in West Michigan. So it's just such a pleasure to be here to do this introduction. Since taking over his role, he's led the effort to evolve Amway's global strategy and their customer experience. He's been heavily involved in looking at talent capabilities. That's the conversation we met around. And I'm proud to say that Amway was one of the first companies to put up their hand to co-develop the Laker Accelerated Talent Link pilot. And we have 2 of the students here in that pilot that will be starting in January with their Amway internship. The program provides innovative learning opportunities as well as a pathway to a job offer with a partner employer, and helps us create and expand our talent pipeline from all our GVSU community. It's this kind of forward leaning. It took about 2 seconds for Milind to say, we'll participate. It was logical to him, it was innovative, it was a part of being a partner in this community. And so I'm so grateful to your attitude and commitment to Grand Valley, West Michigan, and your leadership globally. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Milind Pant.
Thank you, Philly, and thank you, Dean Lawson. Jill, thank you. And a big thanks to all of you for being here. I was wondering when I came in this morning if on this cold, dark morning after Halloween, if anyone's going to show up, right? I mean, you know, we moved here 5 years back and from Dallas, and Dallas is the coldest place we ever lived in our life before moving here. Okay, so we're still getting used to the experience of and enjoying the cold in West Michigan. What I'm going to be doing over the next 30-ish minutes is basically share with you kind of my work story or life story. Now, why am I doing this? It's this year I complete 30 years of my professional career. And I was having a conversation with a couple of business owners, Amway business owners, earlier this year, and they were very curious about me. And that made me reflect on like how the hell did I get here? Right? I mean, really. And so I want to share you, this is my story. What you may want to just, as you listen to it, your story is very different, right? You are very accomplished, executives and leaders making a huge impact. Some of you are students who have joined. Your family, your growing up, your ambitions, your aspirations, what you want to achieve in life for yourself and your family will be very different from mine. But I'm going to share with you my story very honestly and authentically, and hopefully that provides you some reflection about your story as you craft it going ahead into the future. I'm going to end with, briefly talking about 2050. So while the bulk of it is about my last 30 years, I'm extremely excited about 2050. Right? I'll be 80 then. I don't know what the world will be like at that point of time, but I think it'll be great. Right? It'll be great. So anyways, see it, just, and we'll have a conversation, we'll have a question and answer session at the end of it. So, Grand Rapids, I'm here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is our home, but I grew up a million miles away in the foothills of the Himalayas. And this is a photo on the screen. And basically, I've got a couple of images and photos that I'm going to talk about, right? This is a photo of me. I think I'm 3 or 4 years old. My parents is like black and white as it gets, like spotty. I had to go back to my mom. They live in India, saying, "Can you send something across that I can share on where I grew up?" And when I was growing up in the foothills of the Himalayas in India, I mean, on hindsight, this is purely in hindsight, we didn't have too many material things. I mean, television came home only when I was in my teens. And then as we were traveling across India and living in different cities, it used to be, 100 degrees was normal, or 110 was normal. We didn't have an air conditioning till I was in my mid-30s. But we never missed any of that, right? I mean, we had a loving family. We kind of took life as it is. This was pre-internet, right? There was no internet, right? Even the idea of America was basically San Francisco, Golden Gate Bridge, or New York City, and maybe now and then Dallas Cowboys, right? Those were the things that one really got to know. But anyways, one went on and was lucky. So unlike all of you who are, very fortunate, you've been with GVSU, you're studying in such a fantastic School of Business. You are here in the West Michigan community. I did all my education in India. Rather, we moved to the U.S. About 7 or 8 years back, and I still recollect we were to buy a house, and the banker said, "What's your credit score?" And I said, "What is a credit score?" Like, really? They said, "No, you got to do all this." I said, "But how do I get one?" He said, "Well, you have to take credit." I said, how do I start this process?" Anyways, but we are now very proud and very lucky to be naturalized citizens. We became American citizens a couple of months back, actually a year back, same time next year, and my family is so happy to be here. But anyways, so I grew up in India, studied in India, and got my first job with an Anglo-Dutch multinational, somewhat like P&G is, really big here, called Unilever. I don't know if you've heard of Unilever or not, but I got my first job at Unilever. And I joined Unilever. I was very excited, right? A management trainee, full of like sparkle, and I thought maybe they'll put me into marketing, and I'll get to work on Dove or ice cream. We don't have Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry's is a Unilever brand. That's not there in India then. But I thought they'll make me give me like maybe Magnum or Dove or Lipton or something. So I still remember I joined a small business unit that for Unilever, which is a food, beverages, personal care multinational, made leather shoes for exports. Now, don't ask me why Unilever in India made leather shoe for exports 30 years back. But I joined that. I said, okay, maybe now I'll be able to travel internationally. I'd grown up in India, I didn't even have a passport. I mean, taking a flight was too expensive. So I said, maybe I'll get a chance to go to maybe meet customers, because we were exporting, right? Meet customers. So I still remember in my first week, I went to sit down with my general manager of the business. And he essentially said something like, young man, you got to start with where rubber hits the road. And the biggest business challenge we have is we're not getting reliable supply of leather for our shoes. So you start with what is today called supply chain. All right, so I started with supply chain, and I spent the first 2 years of my career in tanneries like this. With my team, this is not even finished leather tannery. Again, if you've ever been to a tannery, I'm sorry for you. But this is a semi-processed tannery. It's not even a finished. This is India 30 years back. The foul smell, I can still smell it today, right, after 30 years. It used to be humid, dirty, wet, right? And we used to be here trying to help sort out this raw material that you'd go to the finished leather tannery that would then go to the shoe factory, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is, what I'm going to say next may sound like karma. The biggest customer for us at that time, or one of the biggest brands we made shoes for exports, was Hush Puppies. You know who has Hush Puppies? Next door. I had no idea that there was Wolverine. I thought they were based out of New York City or London. I had no idea it was in West Michigan, which of course is karma, right? After 30 years, starting somewhere. But what I thought maybe I made a mistake and my career was over. Here I was, all excited to, at the, in my early 20s, joining a company, ready to become the CEO. I mean, like, and I'm doing leather buying in tanneries like this. And that's my first learning. I hadn't read Carol Dweck's book then on mindset or growth mindset. But my first learning is whatever one is doing, one's got to do the best, and take every assignment as a learning. Right? That's all we can do. Right? My two grown-up sons, both are in college. One is an undergrad, right, here at University of Michigan. The older one is a grad school at NYU. And I know there is this whole discussion about, what's your passion? What are you looking for? And I think that's fine. If you find that, good for you. Otherwise, whatever you're doing, like, do it passionately and do the best and keep learning. So that's my first learning personally, reflecting on my 30 years of my career is to live the life of growth mindset. Anyways, life took on, And I got I was in Yum Brands, and Yum Brands has got, KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell. Kind of with Amway being in health and well-being is like the dark side, right? So now, of course, right? So I moved to Yum Brands, and my first role as a managing director was to Thailand. So I moved to Thailand to run that business, a reasonable sized business, $500 million. Great team, but the business was in deep trouble. And so I went in, I want to make a mark. It's all about strategy and turnaround. And in my first big, important leadership role, I realized it's not about strategy. Actually, Peter Drucker was always right. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch and dinner. And in Thailand, more than any other place, there is a word called Jai. Jai stands for heart. Everything is about the heart. By the way, that's true for all of us as humans, right? We come to work, we come to study, we are in our roles, we do different things, but we're all humans dealing with humans. And culture becomes so important, and leading from the heart becomes so important. This image here is of an amazing, amazing team in Amway. The story is, if you go back to early 2020, the world seemed to kind of like closing down and come to the end with the pandemic, right? The early weeks we were also nervous. We didn't know what to do. Lockdowns. Work from home, and I got a call. I still remember, from Spectrum, and they said, hey, we need help. Could you help? I said, yeah, sure, as Amway, West Michigan, we'll do anything. So, well, we're looking for hand sanitizers. Can you make some hand sanitizers for us? I said, we've never done this. Like, this is not in our SKU list of what we make. But I called up my team. I was at home, right? I was not at work. So I called up a colleague. I said, hey, this is a request. Like, what can we do? He said, I don't know. Let's figure it out. This team, while I was at home, this team cross-functionally went from a request to delivery in 7 days of a new product, right? This was not a sales metric or a profit metric or a KPI that had to be met. There were no uplines, coaches, downlines available. Basically, they did it on their own because they're doing it from the heart. They knew what the community is going through. They realized the community needs something, which may be a very small thing at that point of time, just a hand sanitizer. We are not solving the world's issues, but they believed in this. And in 7 days, they moved at the speed of lightning, right? So my second learning has been, yes, leadership is about so many things, but the core of it is from leading with the heart, leading with love and humility, and trying to remind oneself and be aware if one gets into pride or fear. It happens with me many times. Pride, gosh, it happens many times. Fear, yes, especially when things are going wrong, when there's a crisis, when there's trouble, right? And how does one keep reminding oneself that culture is important, one keeps leading from the heart. Anyway, that's my second learning, which gets me to my third one. As all of you go about your careers, right, and you are very important roles today, and you'll continue going into even more important roles, the size of the budgets will increase. Bigger operating budget, you'll have a better capital budget, you'll be making really important decisions, right, as you keep leading bigger and bigger teams. But my third learning from my experience has been the biggest decisions we make as leaders is to bet on people. If I reflect, a boy growing up in the foothills of the Himalayas in India, the reason I'm sitting here today is because there are people who bet on me, right? This is a person called David Novak, who was the co-chair and CEO and chairman of Yum Brands for a long time, for 20 years. And David bet on me. This is in Thailand. We were in Thailand opening up, I think, one of our KFCs there in Bangkok or near Bangkok. So he bet on me. There are others who bet on me. You know, the board of Amway bet on me. And Philly was mentioning earlier about being the first non-family CEO, right? So non-family CEO. I'm not from West Michigan. I'm too short from West Michigan, right? I'm not from the industry. I'm not from, the industry Amway is. Gosh, I wasn't even an American citizen at that point of time. We got lucky and became citizens a year back. The board of Amway bet on me. So people bet, and as a leader, it is now my responsibility to in turn bet on others, right? And hence, I'm the chief talent and the chief culture officer. More than anything else, my role may say anything else, I'm continuously looking for people to bet on, right? To bet on. Now, will all those bets work out? No, they never do in life, right? But imagine the ones that work out. One, of course, is really good for the person. Second, it gives me satisfaction on seeing someone flourish. But more importantly, it's great for business, right? We're finally, at the end, responsible for results in our business. Betting on people is the best decisions and the most important decisions I have learned as a leader. So that's my third learning. Do we continue? Right? There's 7 of them, okay? All right, okay. And then we go back. What was the first one? What was the second one? So this is, I talk about cherish the spirit of fight the good fight. But I'll share with you a story. So, when I was in my early teens, my parents decided that, education was the most important thing. I said, they want to give me the best education possible, like you have here. So I said, okay, so they send me off to a school. By the way, English is not, as you may have realized from my accent, English is not my first language, right? I speak Hindi, or we spoke Hindi at home. So I went to the school, and at the entrance of the school was the school's coat of arms and a motto, right? It said, "Certa bonum, certa men." I had no idea what it means. I didn't even know English well, and this was Latin. But anyways, I figured out, certa bonum, certa men. How many of you know what it means? You did Latin in school, right? Yeah, it means fight the good fight. Anyways, that's what it means. It means fight the good fight. Anyways, I never realized what it means or what it could be. I still remember in Unilever, once I joined as a part of a management training program, for 8 weeks, Unilever required us to go and live in a village. So, we go stay in a village, no running water, no electricity. India is a poor nation even today, and 30 years back it was even poorer. But what I could see, even in that poor village, where people had no running water, no electricity, for going to a school, it was, biking miles away. Parents wanted the best for their kids, and people were looking for an opportunity. But they didn't have the opportunity, didn't have a chance to be an opportunity. And that stayed with me always. And what Amway does more than anything else is we provide people a chance, we provide them an opportunity. We've got 1 million micro entrepreneurs across the world. This photo is of one of them called Ruru. Why did I pick up Ruru? Because in my first 100 days of listen and learn, when I joined Amway in 2019, I went around the world to understand the business. I'm new, right? I need to understand before I start making decisions. And I was in Taipei, and we were at a business owner training center, and just by chance I met this young lady, shy young lady, who just joined Amway as a business owner. Wasn't so sure about it, probably in her early 20s, and we just had a conversation with a translator in between. Fast forward 5 years later, Ruru is now a leader as a business owner. She has a team of her own. Her nutrition knowledge is better than mine. She knows more about health and well-being than I know as a CEO. So whenever I get to speak to her, which I do over Zoom, once a year or once in every 2 years, I had to go back and start learning about gut health and macronutrients and micronutrients and, healthy body. She has changed in the last 5 years. She's running a business, she's making money, and she's helping herself, her family, her friends, her online community, her in-person community get on their own health and well-being journey, right? That's what Amway does. So whatever role that you're in, if that role can help others kind of fight the good fight in what they're doing, and doesn't matter what function it is and what company it is, that would be fantastic. So I feel very lucky now to be a part of Amway, because whatever we do, my 14,000 colleagues and I, when we wake up in the morning, we're waking up because what we do, we believe can help someone, even if it's a little bit, help them to fight the good fight for themselves and their family, make a little more income, and help someone go on their own health and well-being journey. So that's been, it's something I never realized. As I said, I walked into a school that had Certa Bonum, Certa Men in Latin, which is fight the good fight, but it's always stayed with me since I was a kid. We'll continue. Let's go to the fifth one. Okay. Rocky Balboa. Right? So when I was, let me I'll tell you why I put this here. In India, even after we got television, there used to be only one channel on TV. One channel. So you could choose anything you want to watch as long as it's on that channel. And so Star Wars and Little Lucy or whatever came on Sunday morning, right? And then a few movies used to trickle in. By the way, there's a vibrant Indian movie industry. So there's fantastic movies. If you haven't seen one, if you're ever looking for pure entertainment, keep your brains out and like pure entertainment, you can watch an Indian movie. But one of the movies that used to always came onto us was Rocky, and I've always been a big fan of the spirit of Sylvester Stallone. So why do I pick this up? In career and in life, we'll all get punches. I mean, that's the reality. And I for those of you who haven't, fantastic. Like, this is great. I mean, keep it, value it. But the reality it will happen in a personal life, it will happen in a professional life. It could even stuff like, a boss who sucks, right? I mean, it's terrible. I mean, that's what, I guess my Amway colleagues might be saying about me. But it could be it could be something more serious that may happen. But its reality is, we will get punches. So, at one stage in my career, I was asked if I want to move to China. I was living in Bangkok. Life was good. Business had by the time turned around. I figured out my Jai and the culture, enjoying Thai food. China was a massive business for Yum. At that time, it was a $6 billion business in China. Rather, for those of you may come as a shock, Colonel Sanders is more recognizable in China than Chairman Mao, right? There is one KFC that opens every 18 hours in China. So I landed up there, 400,000 employees. So not franchise, this is, corporate employees, 400,000 employees. I was the fourth or the fifth non-Chinese speaking person, all right? All meetings, all emails were in Mandarin. Business was in trouble because of some stuff that had happened. And I was there with the responsibility to the team, to the 400,000 employees, to help turn around the business. I didn't know what hit me. The size, the complexity, the nature of trying to figure it out. So I started, mornings, I would first do my Mandarin language classes before work started, 3 days a week, travel across, but there were days I couldn't sleep, right? I was under pressure, right? I felt responsible for others, but I also didn't want to fail, right? None of us wake up like this, we all talk about, failure is a good thing, we should celebrate failure. Does any of us get up in the morning saying, today I'm going to fail? No, it never happens, right? So there are going to be punches in professional or personal life. We just need to build resilience, right? In the last of the series that I watched the movie, and again, you may or may not have watched it, but he's now got a restaurant, Italian restaurant, right? And he's serving guests, and his son, who's now perhaps in his 20s or 30s, Rocky's son, like lands up, and he's like, as usual, like the son-dad, relationship is never perfect. So he's saying, anyway, Dad, because of you, this, because of that, and Rocky says to him, he says, in life, the winner is not the one who lands the maximum punches, the one who can take it and keep moving. And hence, resilience is such an important learning. I wish I had figured this out earlier. I would have had a happier journey, and not like trying to go through all these with the pressure on myself. And then it's a very important piece of leadership, because people are looking at you. I mean, they want you to solve problems. They want to take decisions, and things won't go right all the time. They don't. And the same thing may happen. At times, personal and professional punches may come at the same time, which is a 1-2 punch, which you've got to truly have the ability to get yourself back up, right, and get on with it. So, anyways, that's the fifth learning I have. The sixth one. This is a fascinating one. I'm so lucky to be in Amway. This is Dr. Sam. Dr. Sam is his father founded Neutralite, and Dr. Sam is 88 years old. 88. Rather, Dr. Sam and I just came back from a 10-day trip. We traveled to Shanghai, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, and Taipei. Dr. Sam was up every morning looking fresh and energetic more than I was, and was going on, and for those of you, like, we have these rallies where there are like 15,000 people in a stadium. And in Shanghai, we have 15,000 people in the stadium, 1 million people watching online, and Dr. Sam was on stage. But what I learned from Dr. Sam is we've got to take care of ourselves first. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, how will we be able to take care of either our loved ones at home or our teams at work? We cannot, right? So I learned the importance of building healthy habits and embracing optimal health. All of you know Amway, reasonably well. At times people ask me, so what is Amway? What does Amway do? Well, so Amway is a business owner-led health and well-being company. We're all about health and well-being. That's what we do. Right? We are about prevention. Our business owners build these communities where they provide people healthy habits. You start with eating well, take care of your gut, have long sound sleep, if possible, exercise or do some kind of fitness daily, and have loving relationships. It's not a complicated formula. It's very difficult to build those habits, right? That's why we need a sense of community. That's what these business owners do. They build these communities. They build teams and then teach those teams. But I learned that I have lost 15 kilos in the last couple of years, and it's not because of weight loss. I'm missing a lot of weight loss, but I've done that by starting to take care of my gut, right? I feel healthier. I feel fitter today than I did 30 years back when I started my career, right? Which is a great feeling. It's a great feeling. And for those of you, who are looking at, so we want to make sure everyone is able to have the health span which is as close as possible to our lifespan. We have no control over our lifespan, right? That's not for us to decide. But we can take care of our health span so that we are healthier longer, right? All the data shows that across the world, the last 10 years is challenging for most people, right? And for that, we need to start building healthy habits much earlier on. So if you're in your 20s, start now. If you're in your 40s, start now. If you're in 50s, start. If you're in 60s, start now. Because it's never too late to start. And that's one of the biggest learnings I've had, for both. And now, my sons are on this. Because, as a dad, I can say so many things to them, but they watch what I do, not what I say, right? So they are on their own health journey, right? My parents, the same thing. My Amrita, all of us have gone into our own journey, which is fantastic. So as a leader, of course, in Amway, we want to be product of the product. That's what Dr. Sam always talks about. By the way, this images from one of our farms. This one is alpaca. I don't know how many of you, this is an Amway secret. We are at core, we are farmers. We have 6,000 acres of organic farms in Amway. We had them for decades. This is before organic farming became, I don't know, mainstream or whatever it is. Like, we've been doing organic farming. We've got organic farms in Mexico. We've got them in Trout Lake, east and west, and we got them in northeast Brazil, and we got a research farm near Wuxi, Suzhou in China. So that's my sixth learning. My seventh one is so this is my family. So you saw the first black and white photo. So now these are the one on the two on the right are my parents. So they were here in Grand Rapids last summer. Those are my two sons. The older one, it's but I always take selfies. I'm the selfie guy in the family. My older one, as you can see, has got a challenge. I mean, he's not going to smile if I say smile. Amrita and my younger one. Last year, my younger one graduated from East Grand Rapids High School. So, for grandparents to be here during time was fantastic. So when I reflect on it, my seventh learning and my realization more when I became a dad with teenage sons is nurturing family values. What that meant for me was do the right thing, be kind, work hard, and the confidence that my parents provided, saying, you can do whatever you want to do. I mean, they never started off saying there are any constraints. I mean, we didn't know constraints, right? So, I believe, I could do anything at that point of time. But I look back, I truly value that. Of course, my parents are a million miles away in a city near Bombay. That's where they live and settle down. But we make sure that, as a family, we're there at least once a year so that, they can meet the grandkids. And then we try and convince them to come here between middle of May and middle of October, right? So that's the time frame to do that. Anyway, those are my 7 learnings. So as I said, I'm sharing these stories not for, it's helpful for me to reflect back, but that's not really useful for you. My encouragement for you as you hear this is to reflect on your own story and then look ahead. As I said, the future is so much potential for all of you. Again, it doesn't matter how old you are, at what stage of career or life you are, if you're starting off as a student or if you're a senior executive in a company or you're retired, it doesn't matter, right? Now, some of you may say, but Milind, who knows about the future? That's true. 3 years back, we didn't know something called, COVID. If anyone had said we'll be facing 2 wars at the same time in the world, we said, really? You must be joking, right? That cannot happen. We figured this out. This kind of stuff doesn't work. There are friction in society, right? So you say, really? I think it'll be fantastic. It'll be fantastic. And each of you will make a difference in the role that you do. What I want to keep doing is keep learning, keep growing, and keep helping others do the same. And I said, I am looking forward to 2050. I have no idea what it will be like, where we will be. Amrita and I have moved homes 12 times. But Grand Rapids is the longest we've lived in, and we love it here, right? But I don't know what life will be and what the world will be. But I can't wait for it to be 2050. And I hope this 7 learnings of mine and my story gives you some time to reflect on your own and plan your future ahead. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your story. I'm curious, with your lesson number 6, did you struggle with any cognitive dissonance working at Yum Brands and optimizing healthy lifestyle, or did you learn that after you left?
Well, it's a great question. And by the way, first question, let's give you a huge round of applause. It's always, hey, someone's going to ask the first question, right? Thank you. Let me just go back. I'll answer your question, but let me just give you a context. When we were growing up, summer vacation for us meant going to our grandparents' home, right? I mean, we didn't like, I mean, the idea was not to go off for vacation like somewhere else, right? We just go to grandparents' home in the foothills of the Himalayas. And it was, and again, I didn't realize then or value then, but very, very simple living. They lived, off near a village. My grandmom would wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning. They had 2 cows at home, so to, milk the cows. As a kid, I would like wake up with her and, go off and do that. Whatever we ate was from the, whatever, I don't know, they maybe had half an acre plot or maybe something like that. Whatever grew there was eaten, so it could be called farm to table, right, today. And if we had to get groceries, like even a loaf of bread, as being the kid around, I would run down the hill about 1.5 miles or 2 miles, to the grocery store, and then had to come back again. So I was very active in doing that. I think, of course, modernity and life, took on. But I had realized the value of health when I started hitting my mid-30s. But I truly understood it when I came to Amway. My big aha was when I went to the organic farm. When I looked at the spinach, I looked at the echinacea, I was just blown away. And I remember then after that going to Stanford School of Medicine, where Amway has been doing a multi-year project on wellness. And they shared with me the idea of well-being. They talked about plant-forward diet. And I said, gosh, this is same as, what my grandparents were living, so much while back. And, how can I incorporate into my own life? And how can we help the million entrepreneurs across the world in their communities? And then the pandemic hit. We were all locked down. And frankly, we all learned health is wealth, right? I mean, you can have everything else, but if you don't have health, you've got nothing. So we really doubled down on this. If you're curious to know more, if you Google Stanford Well, WELL program, you will find the conclusions of the health and well-being study. 35,000 quantitative across 5 markets, including the Bay Area and the US. It's fascinating. So we picked that up, and that's what's become Amway. We've taken the best of the history of Amway, right, and put it together. And a million micro entrepreneurs, business owners, our vision is to help 1 billion people live a better, healthier life. And it's all about prevention. And we're investing in gut science significantly. We're making partnerships. We bought a startup company that's into gut health. I mean, the science on gut is just growing very fast. And the trillions of gut bacteria we have, and I know I should shut up now because if I get started off on this, I can go on. They love, what do they love? They love plant-based. They love phytonutrients. They love polyphenols. So, which has been our strength as Amway. So we bring it all together in terms of products and solutions that can help people have healthy skin, healthy aging, healthy weight, and fitness. Those are the 4 programs we're doing it. So, I mean, it's but in Korea, as I said, be it in KFC or Pizza Hut, or be it in Amway, or be it in Unilever before that, I do the best of what I have to the best possible. I mean, those restaurant businesses support entrepreneurs across the world. I remember I landed up in Kitwe in Zambia. I didn't know Kitwe existed. I know Lusaka, but I didn't know Kitwe. But I was in South Africa, and they said, okay, do you want to go to Zambia? I said, sure, let's go. So I landed up in Kitwe, and the team there was fantastic. They were fighting the good fight. Right? They were proud of what they do in the Pizza Hut. They love serving customers, and we love supporting them and giving them the opportunity. So, right, but I don't know if that answers your question, but it's. But thank you for asking the first question.
Hello. Being the CEO of such a global and large company such as Amway, You have a lot of responsibility, especially in regarding to decision making. How do you manage the pressures, both personally and professionally, with regard to making decisions that potentially can affect thousands of people?
Yeah, it's a great question, and as you very rightly said, we've got 14,000 colleagues in Amway, but we also have 1 million business owners across the world. 90% of them are part-time, right? And so the decisions we make, impact our colleagues in Amway, but they do impact the business owners equally. So I think there's a personal side to it and a professional side to it. And there are no good answers in this, by the way, right? I'm not going to say like it's easy, right? It's not. On the personal side, as I said, starting with taking care of one's health is really important, really important. Some of my colleagues and I, as I said, come back after, Kristen is there. I don't know. Kristen, did you wake up at 1:30? What? So she was up at 1:30 a.m. I think. I was up at 2 a.m. this morning. I'm like, what do you do? You're trying to get through jet lag. No one has sympathy for jet lags, right? But before I was coming here, I said, whatever be my jet lag, I've got to do some bit of fitness. I've got to do it. Come on, Milind. So 20 minutes. And I did my HIIT, right? I did my stretching, and I'm here, and my breakfast is something I learned from our business owners. It's fruits, and I'm not making a pitch for Amway products, but it's fruits and all plant protein powder and probiotics and fiber and kefir or whatever else that comes along with it. And that's So it starts with taking care of one's health. It's an important piece of that, and under it, sleeping well is really important as a part of that. It's long sound sleep. So I set up goals for myself, and I've got health goals too. Right, 50 hours of sleep a week is one of my health goals. So I think that's one aspect of personal. But then there's a professional aspect of taking decisions. And my learning is to bet on people. To have to be surrounded by great people, like some of my colleagues here on this table, and have the right culture. And as a CEO, that's my philosophy. For those of you maybe, there's a law of diminishing returns with the number of decisions I make. Rather, more the power of the role, not a Milind as a person, the role, the fewer decisions one should be making. In my view. And I'm not saying that's the only view, but in my view. But they're really good people with the right processes and the right culture, who know exactly where we are going and why we are going there, who will be making those decisions. I don't even, there's stuff happening in the organization there's no way humanly I would know about, right? But you trust people to do the right thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. I have kind of a two-part question. When you are looking for people to bet on, what are you looking for? And then kind of on the other side of that, if you're someone who's looking to be bet on, how can you show up in spaces?
That's a great question. I don't have a perfect answer for the first part of your question. But if there were some things I would look for, I would start with, does the person have a growth mindset? Is the person uncomfortable with the status quo? Are they prepared to go outside the comfort zone? Is their life a set of experiences where they've learned things? Of course, made an impact, and that is important. But I would look, other than obviously character and the foundational stuff, I would look for, more than anything else, I would look for a growth mindset in a person who's there. And if it comes to more things, I would try to understand their leadership and see if they balance the heart and the mind. We need both. And by the way, leading from the heart is not about only touchy-feely and not making hard decisions. Of course not. right? That's never the case. So I would look for, understand the leadership. Very difficult actually to assess these things, especially in an interview situation. It's almost, I would say it's more of an art. And then I would look for how have they bet on people in their career. And I try to understand some examples and experiences from that. So I would look for some of those ones that I mentioned in my earlier learnings. I would look for some of them. But there is no, it's a bit of stuff. In this also one actually learns from kind of the mistakes one has done and says, okay, all right, like why did one decide that? And so that's what. But the second part of your question is, how does one show up? I mean, I don't know, just like be yourself. I know it's a very cliche thing to say. Okay, let me put it differently. In my career, maybe that might be, in my career, I've had a huge respect for HR, but I've never depended on HR for my career. I took responsibility for my career, right? I made the efforts, right? Because otherwise, I mean, the possibilities of what I started off with ambition, right, and a drive, and I figured a way to channelize it in a way which was not always internal driven, but it's just, I was saying, like, just one takes responsibility and goes for it. I mean, I'm prepared to take no's. I don't know how much. Okay, I'll just share the story. So that, when I was starting with my career at that time, I still remember, McKinsey just started a Bombay or a Mumbai representative office, like in a hotel business center. And I wanted to join McKinsey at that time. I thought, like, which is the best place I could join, right? I want to join McKinsey. Why not? Like the best consulting firm. I would keep applying to them, and they would keep sending me rejection. I shared this. I never got through. I never even got an interview call. But that's fine. That's okay. I tell this story. I've kept that letter from McKinsey, by the way, from 1992 or 93, right? Saying, in a very courteous way, you've seen your resume, but like, really, thank you. Right? And I share that with my son. I say, so what? So what? Right? Give it a shot. Right? Live a life of a growth mindset. Get out of your comfort zone. Right? Try out new things. Keep learning. So, I don't know if they will listen to me or not. I don't know. Maybe they will. We'll see. I don't have a better answer to that second part. But thank you.
How have you amplified culture at the next level? Because the other saying that I have is culture is what you do when no one is looking. So when I leave the room, how are you all owning the culture of our team together? So I'm curious, how have you empowered others to carry the culture flag within the companies that you've led?
Great question. And just acknowledging, I'm very fortunate in my role because Amway has a great culture. Amway actually has a culture of the heart. We all look at ourselves as a family and colleagues, but it's a great culture, very collaborative. It's the Michigan nice. It's a Michigan nice culture. No, in a truly nice way. The question then came in for Amway was, how does one take the strengths of our culture and infuse in it the entrepreneurial pioneering spirit of Rich and Jay? Because Rich and Jay, were entrepreneurs at heart. Going back to the 1950s from Ada, Michigan, starting with an idea and working in a global company, really? They failed 100 times before they landed up in Nutrilite and Amway. We started missing that part, and that happens with every large company, by the way. It's not just Amway, right? You become big, processes come in, systems come in, bureaucracy comes in, which is important at times. So we had to pick the best of our culture and infuse it with the pioneering spirit of Rich and Jay. So we called it a founder's growth mindset. So if we speak to our colleagues in Amway, it's called a founder's growth mindset. What is the founder's growth mindset? We've defined it. It's got 3 elements to it, which is love to learn, live to serve, and lead from heart. And for those 3, each of them have 3 leadership behaviors, so there are 9 leadership behaviors that are put down on what is expected in some sense for it to be a good and successful leader in Amway. The rest of it, I think, is about all of us, starting with me, walking the talk. But if I don't walk the talk, I mean, really only be on a piece of paper, right? But we call it the founder's growth mindset, and those are 3 elements of the founder's growth mindset.
So I'm going to take advantage of my position for the last question. And this is really mostly focused for all of the students that are here and people who are relatively early in their careers. Near the end of what you were talking about, you said you and your family have moved 12 times, and your 5 years here in Michigan is the longest you've lived anywhere.
That is correct.
That's a lot of change and a lot of decisions to take a risk to move. What is it that helped you make the decision that it was okay to move every less than 5 years when you weren't sure what the outcome was going to be? Because so many organizations, people get into the organization and they think they have to stay there for a long, long time. How do you do that? And what advice would you have for people who are early in their career to take advantage of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And first of all, just acknowledging, I think it's a bit mad to do what I did for 12 years, for 12 times. I have a very, very loving and supportive spouse, who played along. I mean, there's no way this could have been possible to do. My sons, I wonder if they're confused on who they are and what they're about, or will they look back and see this in a positive way? The jury is out on that. We'll find out like how it works out on our 2 sons, because they had to move that many schools and cities multiple times. But to your question, my personal approach, again, this is the right answer for you. Whatever is your answer is the right answer. For me, what it means, I can only share what's for me. For me, it was always about always having my arms wide open. And I embraced any opportunity that came. Was there a risk in it? Yes. But the risk was what? It won't work out, right? Okay, then I'll go back to like what it was. I can go back to the city, or I can go back to that role, or maybe a different, role. But, what's the worst that can happen? It won't work out. Okay. As long as, I think for me, as long as the family was together and was game to be on this adventure, it was all good.
So the message there, the lesson there is try it. If it doesn't work out, there'll be something else.
That's right.
So thank you, Milind. This
Thank
was
you.
very, very inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.